The orbital offices of the Intergalactic Credit Consortium glittered like a crown of frozen diamonds above Earth's blue curve. Ambassador Elias Carter adjusted his tie as the anti-grav lift deposited him onto the receiving platform, his polished dress shoes clicking against crystal flooring that hummed with embedded financial data streams. Around him, Xiperian bankers scurried on multi-jointed legs, their chitinous exoskeletons reflecting the glow of holographic debt projections that filled the cavernous chamber. Ambassador Carter. A voice hissed from the shadows. Director Vexlath emerged from a swirling cloud of calculation drones, his four-fingered hands manipulating floating ledgers with practiced efficiency. How quaint of you to arrive in person. Most debtor species send drones to receive their foreclosure notices. Elias forced a smile, keeping his hands loose at his sides. The Xiperian's compound eyes tracked his every micro-expression, no doubt analyzing his stress levels for the credit score adjusters whirring overhead. We humans believe in looking our creditors in the eye, Director. Vexlath's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. He gestured, and a hologram bloomed between them, Earth wrapped in crimson chains of scrolling financial penalties. Then behold the consequences of your species' fiscal irresponsibility. The Intergalactic Credit Consortium has voted unanimously to enforce Article FA of the Galactic Development Accords. Elias studied the projection. The numbers shifted constantly, trillions in compounding interest, penalties for unauthorized atmospheric modification, even back taxes on lunar mining operations humanity didn't know were taxable. This can't be right. Our economists verified. Your primitive economists, Vexlath interrupted, tapping a ledger entry that made the hologram shudder, failed to account for the compounded interest on the oxygen you've been breathing. A standard galactic resource levy. A notification pinged on Elias' wrist display. He glanced down. A message from the UN Secretary General, flagged urgent. The Xiperian director didn't miss the movement. Ah, your leadership finally understands the gravity? Vexlath scuttled closer, the scent of acidic ink wafting from his carapace. Let me summarize. Earth has been repossessed. All terrestrial assets now belong to the ICC Liquidation Division. Elias felt his pulse spike. The calculation drones overhead emitted a pleased chirp at his rising stress metrics. There must be some mistake. We've been members of the Galactic Federation for barely a decade. Precisely. Vexlath's forelimbs spread wide, knocking aside a cluster of hovering debtors begging for extensions. 10 years of unpaid development fees, infrastructure levies, and, he squinted at a subledger, ah yes, a modest late penalty for your delayed submission of planetary biodiversity inventories. Outside the crystalline walls, Elias could see ICC enforcement drones already taking position in geosynchronous orbit, each one the size of a city block, their repo beams shimmering with contained energy. You have 30 cycles to vacate, Vexlath said, sealing the hologram with a biometric stamp that made the entire chamber resonate with finality, after which the consortium will commence relocation procedures. Elias' wrist display pinged again. This time it was a secured military channel. Captain Naomi Reyes's ID flashed alongside a single word, Mars. He schooled his features into neutrality. Relocation. Elias tested the word. You're evicting 8 billion people. Vexlath's antennae twitched. Oh, don't look so grim. The Rigel 7th labor colonies have excellent mortality rates, for the first 5 years at least. The calculation drones suddenly shrieked. Elias' stress metrics had flatlined. He reached into his breast pocket, withdrawing a small data crystal older than the Federation itself. Before we discuss evictions, Director, Elias said, placing the crystal on the floating ledger between them, perhaps you'd care to review our accounting? The crystal activated with a sound like a vault door creaking open after centuries. Ancient Terran numerals flickered to life in the air, glowing with the patina of forgotten encryption protocols. Vexlath recoiled as the first line item resolved. Sol system, claim staked, FAAD, unpaid usage fees, FA quadrillion galactic standard credits. What is this? The Zephyrian's chitin darkened with alarm. Elias adjusted his tie again, smiling properly this time. Our counteroffer. The Galactic Senate chamber hummed with the low-frequency chatter of 100 species. Anti-grav pods drifted lazily through the cavernous space, their occupants reclining in postures of casual superiority. Ambassador Elias Carter adjusted his tie as the lift platform carried him toward the central speaking dais. His polished dress shoes clicked against the alien alloy floor, too loud in the sudden hush that fell over the assembly. Recognized, boomed the automated voice of the Senate arbiter, Elias Carter of Sol System Classification Human. A ripple of amused clicks and chitters spread through the pods. Elias kept his spine straight as he reached the glowing podium. The holographic display before him flickered to life, projecting Earth's financial records in shimmering Zephyrian script. He cleared his throat. Esteemed representatives, he began. The Intergalactic Credit Consortium's claim against Earth is primitive. A guttural voice cut through the chamber. Councillor Drisk of the Vorak Dominion floated forward in his pod, his 4 muscular arms folded across his armored chest. Your species barely mastered radio when we were building Dyson spheres. What could you possibly contest? Laughter echoed through the chamber. Senator Myrene of the Phosphorians pulsed with amusement, her bioluminescent skin cycling through mocking patterns. Let the soft skin speak, she trilled. I want to hear how they'll pay with. What was it? Potatoes. Elias's knuckles whitened on the podium edge. Earth was never properly notified of these so-called development fees. The first we heard of this debt was yesterday when, because your kind can't read basic hypernet bulletins. Drisk interrupted again. His pod drifted closer, the Vorak's tusked face splitting into a predatory grin. The rules are clear. Fail to pay galactic taxes, forfeit your holdings. He made a show of consulting his wrist display. Ah yes, your entire planet is listed as collateral. How unfortunate. A new hologram flared to life above the podium, Earth circled by pulsing red ICC repo. Drones, the image zoomed in on major cities tagged for asset reclamation. Elias's stomach twisted at the sight of New York marked for dismantling. My people have lived on Earth for millennia, Elias said, forcing his voice steady. You can't just can and will, Myrene sang. Her pod did a lazy spin. Unless you have 10 trillion credits. No, then pack your mud huts, human. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Elias saw the Octavian delegation's tentacles quiver with amusement, while a group of crystalline Zenthar clinked together like wind chimes. Only the silent observers from the Crick Empire watched without mockery, but their insectoid faces revealed nothing. Elias tapped his wristpad. The hologram changed to display Earth's formal protest, stamped with the seals of every Terran nation. The United Earth government rejects this claim. These fees were levied without representation, violating Galactic Code Fei. Finished a new voice. The laughter died instantly as High Arbiter Velix emerged from the shadows. The ancient being's segmented body glided forward on a dozen articulated legs, his compound eyes reflecting the hologram's glow. The clause you cite applies only to recognized spacefaring civilizations. He made a dismissive gesture with one clawed limb. Humans do not qualify. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. With all due respect, Arbiter, we've had warp capability for 6 generations, Velix interrupted. A blink. The Vorak alone have thrived for 12 millennia. He turned to address the chamber. This matter is settled. The foreclosure stands. A voting interface appeared before each pod. Elias watched helplessly as the tally mounted, 97% in favor, 2% abstaining. 1% he squinted at the single dissenting vote. The Crick. Interesting. The Galactic Senate recognizes the ICC's claim as valid, Velix announced. Earth will be processed for resource reclamation in 30 standard cycles. His mandibles clicked. Next agenda item, Phobos mining rights. Elias barely heard the dismissal tone. As he stepped off the dais, Drisk's pod drifted alongside him. Don't look so grim, soft skin, the Vorak rumbled. We'll preserve some of your artifacts, Perhaps how do you say, museum piece of your species. Myrene's laughter followed Elias all the way to the exit lift. The doors hissed shut, cutting off the Senate's resumed debate about Phobos. Only then did Elias allow himself to slam a fist against the wall. The impact sent a jolt up his arm, human bones against alien metal. His wristpad chimed, an encrypted message from Mars Division. Elias's breath caught as he read the first line. Captain Reyes found something. You need to see this. The lift descended toward Earth's glowing blue curve. Somewhere in that Senate chamber, Drisk was still laughing. Elias allowed himself a tight smile. Let them laugh. Humanity's oldest weapon wasn't guns or ships. It was patience. And the galaxy was about to learn exactly how patient they'd been. The Martian dust storm howled outside the buried archive, grains of red sand scraping against the reinforced dome like 1,000 whispering ghosts. Captain Naomi Reyes adjusted her breather mask, the thin atmosphere making every movement feel sluggish. Her boots left deep prints in the rust-colored powder as she approached the ancient facility, its hexagonal entrance barely visible beneath centuries of accumulated debris. Bookkeeper, she said, tapping her wristcom. You sure this is the place? The AI's voice chirped in her earpiece, crisp and amused. Positive, Captain. According to pre-Exodus records, this was a Solgov black site ledger repository, buried very intentionally. Naomi snorted. Of course it was. She brushed aside the last layer of dust from the door's control panel. The interface flickered weakly, its power cells barely clinging to life after 300 years of neglect. She pulled a small adapter from her belt, jacking it into the port. All right, let's see what our ancestors were so keen on hiding. The door groaned, its hydraulics protesting as it slid open just enough for her to slip inside. The air was stale, thick with the scent of ozone and decayed insulation. Dim, emergency lights flickered to life, revealing rows upon rows of data cores, glowing blue cylinders humming softly in their cradles. Naomi whistled. This isn't just a ledger. This is a library. Bookkeeper materialized as a hologram beside her, a flickering figure in an old-fashioned accountant's vest. Oh, it's far more than that, Captain. This is the real financial history of Earth. The one they didn't put in the official records. Naomi moved to the nearest core, wiping dust from its surface. The display lit up, scrolling lines of text in archaic Solgov coding. She squinted. These are property deeds. Among other things, Bookkeeper said, floating to another terminal. Colony claims, mining rights, warp, lane tolls, all filed under shell corporations, dummy entities, layers upon layers of misdirection. Naomi's pulse quickened. How much? Bookkeeper's hologram flickered as it processed. Well, let's see. Therese the Titan refineries, the Ceres diamond vaults, the Proxima Centauri trade hub. Bookkeeper. Oh, and the entirety of the Kepler phase system, which, incidentally, has been producing enough rare metals to buy a small planet every decade. Bookkeeper. The AI paused. Yes, Captain. How much do we actually own? Bookkeeper's hologram straightened, adjusting imaginary spectacles. Preliminary estimate, approximately 42% of the Orion Spur's habitable systems, 68% of its mineral, rich asteroid belts, and, 90% of the major warp, lanes connecting Federation core worlds. Naomi's breath caught. You're joking. I do not joke, Captain. I audit. She stared at the scrolling data, the numbers burning into her retinas. This whole time, we weren't some backwater species begging for scraps. We were landlords. Bookkeeper nodded. Landlords who very deliberately let the galaxy think we were tenants. Naomi's wristcom buzzed. It was Elias, his face grim on the tiny screen. Naomi. The ICC just moved up the deadline. They're sending repo. Drones in 12 hours. She grinned. Tell the ambassador to relax. We've got leverage. Elias blinked. What kind of leverage? Naomi gestured at the glowing cores around her. The kind that starts with "We own half the galaxy" and ends with "Pay up." Bookkeeper cleared its non-existent throat. Actually, Captain, it's closer to 60% if you factor in compound interest over the last 2 centuries. Bookkeeper, yes? Shut up and start printing deeds. The AI's hologram shimmered with something akin to glee. With pleasure, Captain. Naomi tapped her wristcom again, this time opening a fleet. Wide channel. Pioneer, this is Reyes. Prep the quantum burst transmitter. We're about to send the ICC an invoice. A pause, then her first officer's voice, wary but curious. An invoice for what, exactly? Naomi's smile was razor, sharp, back rent. The ICC repo. Drones descended through Earth's atmosphere like a swarm of locusts, their polished hulls glinting in the sunlight as they fanned out across the planet. Each one was the size of a city block, bristling with molecular disassemblers and legal enforcement protocols. From orbit, they looked like a glittering storm. Beautiful, if not for what they represented. Ambassador Elias Carter stood on the balcony of the United Earth Embassy, his fingers gripping the railing as he watched the drones take position over every major city. Behind him, the holographic projection of Director Vexlath flickered, the Zeperian's chitinous face twisted in what passed for a smirk among his species. 30 cycles have passed, Ambassador, Vexlath hissed, his voice like dry leaves scraping together. The Intergalactic Credit Consortium does not extend grace periods. Your planet is now forfeit. Elias didn't turn around. He kept his eyes on the drones, counting them, memorizing their formations. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice calm. Too calm. Vexlath's mandibles twitched in amusement. Mistake? No, this is procedure. Your species failed to meet its financial obligations. Now, you will learn the price of insolvency. A shadow passed over the embassy. One of the drones had taken position directly above them, its underbelly humming as it prepared to begin planetary reclamation. The air smelled like ozone and something sharper, the scent of legal inevitability. Elias finally turned, meeting the hologram's compound eyes. You didn't audit us properly. Vexlath's antennae stiffened. What? Your records are incomplete. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a data crystal, holding it up so the light caught its edges. Humanity doesn't owe the galaxy. Director, the galaxy owes us. The hologram flickered again, this time with interference. Explain yourself, soft skin. Elias tossed the crystal onto the table between them. It activated immediately, projecting a star map into the air, a sprawling 3-dimensional web of territories, trade lanes, and resource nodes. Each one pulsed with a single, damning label, property of Solgov. Vexlath recoiled. This impossible. Not impossible, Elias corrected, just overlooked. He tapped the map, expanding a cluster of systems near Orion. See these, mining colonies, established years ago under the Outer Rim Expansion Act. And these. Another tap, warp lanes. Humanity's been charging tolls for centuries. You just never noticed. The drone above them shuddered, its disassemblers powering down mid-cycle. Across the planet, others followed suit, their targeting systems flickering as new data flooded their networks. Vexlath's voice was barely a whisper. You were squatting, Elias grinned. We prefer the term entrepreneurial leasing. He leaned forward. Now let's talk about your debt. The hologram flickered violently. This changes nothing. The ICC does not recognize. Too late, Elias interrupted. Behind him, the sky lit up. Not with the glow of repo, drones, but with the hard blue streaks of human warships dropping out of warp. The USN Defiance led the formation, its massive hull blotting out the sun as it took position over the embassy. Captain Naomi Reyes' voice crackled over the embassy's comms. Ambassador, we've got full tactical lock on the ICC fleet, awaiting your orders. Elias kept his eyes on Vexlath. Foreclose on us. He tilted his head. Fine, but first, pay our back rent. The drone above them let out a shuddering whine before its systems failed completely. It listed to one side, then another, before plummeting toward the ocean in a fiery arc. Vexlath's hologram dissolved into static, but not before Elias caught the look in his eyes. The first flicker of something no banker ever wanted to feel. Outside, the rest of the drones began to fall. The ICC auditors arrived in a fleet of gleaming silver ships, their hulls polished to reflect their owners' obsession with wealth. Each vessel bore the sigil of the Intergalactic Credit Consortium, a circle of grasping claws around a credit chit. They docked at the USN Atlantica with the smug assurance of predators about to feed. Captain Naomi Reyes met them in the Atlantica's observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back. The lead auditor, a Zephyrian named Quillis, scuttled forward on too many legs, his eye stalks twitching. "This is highly irregular," he hissed. "The ICC does not audit debtors we collect." Naomi smiled. "Good thing we're not debtors." Quillis' mandibles clacked in irritation. "Your species owes 3 trillion galactic credits in development fees, late penalties, and..." "Actually," interrupted Bookkeeper, the Atlantica's AI, its voice smooth as polished steel, "you'll find that Solgov has been undercharging the galaxy for use of its assets." The auditors froze. Quillis' eye stalks quivered. "What assets?" Naomi tapped a control panel. The observation deck's windows darkened, then lit up with a star map. At first, it showed only the familiar sprawl of the Orion Arm, ICC territory marked in cold blue. Then, like embers catching fire, thousands of systems blinked to life in red, Solgov red. Quillis made a sound like a choked vacuum seal. This is impossible." "Not impossible," Naomi said, "just forgotten." The star map zoomed in, asteroid mines in the Vega Belt, stamped with Terran corporate sigils, warp lanes near Rigel, patrolled by silent human drones for centuries. Colony worlds in the Proxima sector, their populations quietly paying taxes to Earth for generations. One of the auditors, a Phosphorian, collapsed into a floating chair. "You've been squatting on our systems." "Your systems?" Naomi arched an eyebrow. "Funny. Our records say we got there first." Bookkeeper projected a stream of legal documents, ancient treaties, mining claims, even a few hand-signed parchments from the early space age. Under galactic law, Phi-B, first occupancy, establishes permanent sovereignty unless formally ceded. Humanity never ceded anything. Quillis' chitinous plating rattled. "The ICC managed these regions. We built the trade lanes, the infrastructure. And we let you," Naomi said. "Until now." The star map updated. Red tendrils spread, swallowing ICC Holdings whole. The auditors watched in horror as entire sectors flipped from blue to crimson. "That's the entire Orion spur." A Vorak auditor screeched, his frills flaring. Naomi crossed her arms. "Yep, and according to our calculations, the ICC owes Solgov approximately 7 trillion credits in back rent, usage fees, and unauthorized resource extraction." Silence. Then Quillis lunged for the comm panel. "This is Auditor Prime Quillis. Immediate priority alert to ICC command. The humans." Naomi caught his wrist. Are no calls until our audit is complete." Outside the observation deck, the Atlantica's weapons hummed to life. Across the system, hidden human ships decloaked, dreadnoughts older than the ICC itself, their hulls scarred from battles no alien had ever recorded. Quillis' eye stalks swiveled to Naomi. "You planned this," she grinned. "We're terrible at paying bills, but we're excellent at collecting." Bookkeeper projected one final document, a single line of text, glowing in the center of the star map. "Welcome to the Solgov rental empire. Pay up." The ICC repo fleet emerged from warp in a storm of distorted light, their angular vessels bristling with confiscation beams and asset stripping lasers. Admiral Kael'thas watched from the command spire of the Prophet's Hand, his four eyes narrowing as the human dreadnought Defiant spun to face them. Alone, pathetic, Kael'thas hissed, his frills flushing crimson. One ship against 300. Send the drones. Peel that hull open and take what's ours. Repo, drones swarmed forward, their grasping claws extended. Captain Naomi Reyes leaned back in her chair, aboard the Defiance, cracking her knuckles. All right, kids, let's show these bankers why you don't skip leg day. The first wave hit and died. Hidden panels on the Defiance's hull slid open, revealing not weapons, but industrial grade mining lasers retrofitted for combat. The beams lanced out, slicing drones apart, like they were made of wet receipts. Kael'thas' frills flattened. What surprise, said over the open comm. Turns out asteroid mining tech makes great point defense. The second wave came smarter, flanking in fractal patterns. The Defiance's AI bookkeeper chimed in. Captain, they're attempting to bypass our... Activate the landlords, Reyes ordered. Space rippled. From behind Pluto's shadow, a swarm of self-replicating drones erupted, human models built for deep space construction. They latched onto ICC ships, not to destroy, but to modify. Are they installing solar panels on my hull? An ICC captain shrieked as his engines were forcibly converted to eco-friendly mode. Kael'thas slammed a fist on the console. Focus fire, destroy that dreadnought. The Prophet's Hand's main cannon charged, a planet-cracking financial instrument capable of liquidating entire ecosystems into collateral. Reyes watched the energy spike on her screen and grinned. Oh, you shouldn't have. She tapped a key, space folded. A tiny black hole, humanity's last resort foreclosure protection, blinked into existence directly in the cannon's path. The beam twisted, sucked in, and spat back out as a spray of harmless light. Kael'thas' frills turned white. That's impossible. Only the Moore Consortium had singularity tech, Reyes finished. Yeah, funny story. We bought them last Tuesday. The Defiance's engines flared. It surged forward, ramming the Prophet's Hand not with weapons, but with a hull coated in quantum-locked legal filings. Cease and desist, Reyes said sweetly as the ICC flagship systems shorted out under the weight of 10,000 pages of legally binding counterclaims. Across the battlefield, ICC ships floundered, human drones welded eviction notice placards to their hulls. One particularly enterprising AI hijacked an entire cruiser's comms to play Earth's collection, demands on loop. Kael'thas stared at the carnage, not of destruction, but of bureaucratic annihilation. His voice cracked. You can't do this. Reyes leaned into the camera, her smile sharp. We just did. Now, about that rent you owe. Alarms blared as the Defiance's final surprise activated, a system-wide Leon lock, freezing every ICC asset in Seoul. Ships drifted, powerless. Accounts emptied. Kael'thas whispered the last words of a dying financial empire. Oh stars, we just got audited. The crystalline spires of the Intergalactic Credit Consortium's headquarters shimmered under the light of 3 suns. Where once the Zephyrian flag had flown, the blue and white banner of Solgov now snapped in the solar winds. Elias Carter leaned back in what had been Director Vexlath's floating chair, his boots propped on a holographic display of the galaxy. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a procession of alien dignitaries waited in line. Their postures were stiff, their appendages twitching with unease. The Vorak delegation kept glancing at the human marines stationed at every door, their black armor polished, their rifles held at ease but very much present. Ambassador Carter, hissed Councillor Drisk as he slithered into the chamber. His scales, usually a proud crimson, had dulled to a sickly pink. This is unprecedented. Elias took a slow sip from his coffee mug. Real Earth coffee brewed from beans grown in the stolen ICC agricultural orbitals. Unprecedented, no overdue. He tapped a command into the console. The galaxy map flared to life, thousands of systems blinking gold human-held territories, hidden for centuries. Senator Myrene of the Phosphorians floated forward in her anti-grav pod, her bioluminescent frills pulsing with anxiety. You can't just take the ICC's assets. There are treaties, protocols. Funny, Elias said, setting his mug down. Those didn't seem to matter when you tried to take our planet. He flicked a finger, and the screen shifted to a live feed of the USN Defiance, hovering over what had been the ICC's central repository. Human engineers swarmed the vaults, cataloging millennia of alien wealth. Captain Naomi Reyes's voice crackled over the comm. Ambassador, we've finished the inventory. Turns out the ICC was behind on their payments to about 1,200 independent systems. Her grin was audible. We've taken the liberty of settling their debts. In exchange for territorial rights, of course. Driscoll's tail lashed. This is theft. No, Elias corrected. This is foreclosure. He stood, straightening his jacket. The ICC overextended itself. We're just restructuring. A new hologram bloomed, a revised galactic map, with Solgov's emblem stamped across half the known worlds. The Orion Spur, the Perseus Arm, even the outer edges of the Vorak hegemony, all now under human administration. You have a choice, Elias said, his voice calm but edged with steel. Sign the new trade accords. Accept reasonable rent for the territories we allow you to keep. He leaned forward. Or we evict you. Silence. The alien delegates exchanged glances, their various limbs trembling. Then, one by one, they began to sign. Later, as the last of the delegates departed, Naomi's face appeared on Elias' screen. They folded faster than I expected. Elias chuckled, gazing out at the stars. His stars now. Turns out, everyone's tough until the landlord shows up. On the surface of what had been ICC Prime, human engineers welded a new sign above the grand entrance. It gleamed under the alien suns, written in 100 languages but carrying the same message. Solgov Galactic Holdings, payments due monthly.